Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with episode 4 of the meta recap, covering patch 2.2 to 2.2c. So now currently I'm on the patch 2.3a, so we're probably going to be waiting quite a long time before having episode 5 of the meta recap. But I have also noticed that in the past episodes, sometimes I do make some statements like, a character or a champion has never been meta again or whatnot. But these kind of statements, I'm going to be avoiding making these kind of statements because, you never know what's going to happen in the future. So I want the videos to be like relevant over time. Like let's say if 1 year later I come back and watch this video, I want the information to still be accurate. I don't want to say like, Orianna has got nerfed and she never re-enters the meta, she got nerfed to the ground, she never re-enters the meta. That's not true, by the way, but I don't want to make these kind of statements and then 1 year later she becomes the top OP pick in mid lane, something like that. That's not good at all. So we're going to avoid making those statements. But as usual, at the start of the video, we have the state of the meta in patch 2.1b up on screen for reference. And also, as I always say at the start of the video, if you guys don't know what the series is about, check out the intro, the first 4 to 5 minutes of episode 1 of the meta recap, where I explain what the meta recap series is all about. Of course, I will link that up in the cards for easier reference. But without further ado, we're going to jump into patch 2.2. Alright, so patch 2.2 has been released and in late March of 2021. And there are actually a ton of additions to the game. So this was a pretty big patch. First up, we have the Galio release. And you can already actually see him in the graphic. But before we get into that, we have the Position Preference Beta. So this was when the beta for Position Preference was released for one patch. And in the next patch, it became permanent. So basically from now on, it became permanent part of Ranked. But in this patch, it was actually a separate game mode just called Position Preference. And we also have the ARAM beta release. So this was the first time ARAM came into the game, and it was on a short, I believe, 2-week trial before, going away and coming back periodically. And we also have the start of the Rank Season 2, which the reward is the Glorious Jinx. Then we also have the release of the Wild Pass, where you can get the Hexplorer Jax if you get to level 50, or is it 60? I'm not sure. And, purchase the Wild Pass, of course. So, if you guys notice, in all of my past meta recap videos, and I'm talking about items, I use all the old items like Locket and Blade of the Rune King. I use the old graphic for the items, but this was the patch where the graphics all updated to the new Season 11 items to match the graphics of the Season 11 items in League PC. So now like the Blade of the Rune King, Locket, and all have a different icon, just slightly tweaked, still looks more or less similar, but this is the patch that happened. And we also have a couple of new items. We have the Force of Nature, which is of course to replace the Adaptive Helm. Then we have the Sunfire Aegis, which of course spawned an entire tank meta around it. And we also have the Frozen Heart, which is of course a very popular item against attack speed carries. And in this patch, we also have the attack speed adjustments. This was the patch that they said that it made attack moving or kiting on AD carries. It was too simple, and when you reach a certain amount of attack speed, you can kite very easily even with no skill. But this was the patch that they so-called adjusted that. Although I have said in many of my videos that I personally don't feel the change. Maybe it's because I'm kiting correctly anyway, but this was the patch that happened. So without further ado, let's actually jump into the actual meta that we see in the graphic. So, oh yeah, actually I forgot to mention, we also got new pings in this patch. So we got the new pings like the enemy missing, enemy has vision here, and the assist me ping. So the other 3 pings came over here. So back to the actual meta. So first up, as you guys can see, Malphite is no longer in the top lane. As I mentioned in my first episode, Malphite is the kind of champion where if no one else is meta, he's gonna be like just there because he's always good. Now we have 3 other champions that are always there that are always good as well, which is Akali, Fiora, and Camille. So now this was the period where there was a lot of like pro play, and basically every match people are picking Akali, Fiora, and Camille in the Baron slash top lane. So that's why these three are meta. This was before the Akali energy adjustments slash nerfs, and Fiora has always been good, as has Camille. So they've always been there. Just that I haven't actually put them in the graphic, but this was their peak where all three of them were like the top Baron laners. In the jungle, we actually have the addition of Evelynn. So as I've been saying, Evelynn has been up and coming. This was the patch where she truly became meta, and everybody was scared of Evelynn stealing objectives. Everybody hated Evelynn's stealth, and Evelynn was just running rampant. So this was the patch where Evelynn was like the top jungler. Then in the mid lane, Orianna actually caught some nerfs. So she had quite a bit of nerfs, but the most notable nerf she had was to her Q damage, her Q cooldown, and her Q AP ratio. So basically, her early game used to be pretty good. This pretty much made it such that her early game was only alright. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, but she still had an insane late game. So if you get to late game Orianna, she was still really good, and she is, of course, still one of the top mid lane champions, just not the top mid lane champion anymore. So the top mid lane champion has become Katarina. Now I have actually mentioned on the Katarina release, which was patch 2.1a, actually nothing from then till now has actually changed. The only thing that changed was that people took like 2 to 3 whole patches to finally master playing Katarina, and this was the patch where you started seeing a lot of Katarinas playing really well, getting insane pentakills, just cleaning up team fights and whatnot. So Katarina really became the best mid laner at this point in time. We also have the release of Galio. So now Galio naturally is a counter to Katarina, so naturally he's going to be good, but on release his numbers were broken, in a sense that his his Winds of War, was actually bugged. So it actually did double the damage when the two winds collided. So the initial hit damage was actually doubled by accident, and they will actually fix this like 2 patches later. But this made him very broken, and mid lane full AP Galio became really good, because just the poking from his Q double damage is just insane. So we don't actually have any changes for the AD carry role, but in support, Janna actually became the best AD carry over Alistar. Firstly, because she innately counters Alistar, but Alistar is actually getting quite a big bit of nerfs already. He's getting like a HP nerf, a Q radius nerf, a Q damage nerf, but even with the radius nerf, people were still playing him a lot. So he is still like the second best support, but he is definitely going down in popularity from here on out. So that was it for patch 2.2. Let's quickly move on to patch 2.2a. Alrighty, so patch 2.2a was released in mid-April of 2021. So in this patch we had the release of Rammus, who didn't really make a huge impact, to be honest, but we also had the Stargazer event, where there was 3 Stargazer skins, which is Camille, Twisted Fate, and Soraka, which is the only, or I shouldn't say only, because this may not be true in the future, but it was the first ever Wild Rift original skin line to release. So of course we had the accompanying event, as I mentioned, and that was pretty much it in terms of the events and significant occurrences. So we're gonna move on to the actual meta. So in the Baron lane and the jungle, we of course don't have any changes, but in the mid lane we have the addition of Diana. So this was the patch where Diana got her mini rework, where essentially her attack speed increase on her E got transferred to her passive. So now when she casts any spell, she gets an increased attack speed, and they also buffed her, like all her abilities basically. Her QWE and ultimate all got buffed. So this was the patch where they buffed Diana to the moon, no pun intended, and she entered the meta. So in the AD carry list, we have actually the addition of Ezreal. Now that is something to note, that Ezreal didn't actually receive any changes except from like 2 to 3 patches ago. I did mention in my meta recap that he did get his Q damage nerf reverted, but now the real reason why Ezreal really has come into the meta, if you guys notice, we have an sort of like an assassin meta with Katarina, Diana, Evelynn, Lee Sin, Akali, you know, and like even Camille and Fiora to some extent can assassinate an AD carry. So the reason for Ezreal becoming meta was both the combination of the assassin meta, where there are a lot of people who can assassinate AD carry. So with Ezreal's safety on his Arcane Shift, he is a really good pick, and also the combination of getting some of his nerfs reverted in the past few patches ago. So that's how Ezreal got into the ADC meta. And in the support role, Alistar's hit but damage to tower got nerfed, but that I feel like that's not the main reason he left the meta, because not many people even knew you could do that. It's more like in the past patch, people were still playing Alistar even after his HP and Q got nerfed, but when we got to the current patch 2.2a, people realized that Alistar really isn't that good anymore, and the best supports became Janna and Braum. So Braum, of course, was always on the fringes. It was one of those champions on the fringes, and now, with Alistar gone, we have Janna and Braum being the two best supports. That's it for 2.2a.
Quadra kill. You're gone. You're godlike. Ace.
Now on to 2.2b, which was released at the end April 2021. Now with this patch, we have the release of the Predators, which is Kha'Zix and Rengar. So, we also had the Nemesis duel coming into the picture, and of course we have the accompanying event of Kha'Zix and Rengar, where you can choose a side, and you'll get the spawn icon, and eventually the side that won would get a special icon. So this patch actually brought quite a bit of changes. We have the support item price increase. So for both Ardent Censer as well as the Harmonic Echo, they both have a price increase. So basically getting the same treatment as like Guardian Angel and Blade of the Rune King. Now, most people, including myself, felt like this nerf was really unnecessary. Their logic was to balance out the prices of like support items with like other roles, but supports already get the least gold in the team anyway, so it sort of made sense that their items were cheaper, but overall it didn't affect too much. It was just something that happened. Now this was also the patch where Barrier got nerfed, because people started realizing that Barrier was very, very good. They started taking Barrier, AD carry started taking Barrier, while support started taking heal from like already like 2 to 3 patches ago. Mid laners started taking Barrier as well, and top laners started taking Barrier as well, so that was a telltale sign that Barrier was way too OP. So they nerfed the cooldown by 30 seconds from 90 seconds up to 120 seconds, I believe. So it was a pretty hefty nerf, and AD carries actually started to take heal, but after a while people realized that it was still more worth it to take Barrier, so people later on reverted to taking Barrier like maybe halfway through the patch. So we're gonna just now cover the actual changes for the meta. So in the Baron lane, no changes. In the jungle, on Rengar release, his numbers were really broken, so Rengar immediately entered the meta as one of the best junglers. However, later on in the patch, towards the end of the patch, he did get a hotfix nerf. So after he got a hotfix nerf, his numbers were no longer broken. He immediately left the meta, but I'm just leaving his picture up there just because he was like the top jungler for a majority of the patch up till the end. And in the mid lane, actually before we cover the mid lane, this was the patch that Evelynn started to get nerfed. So this was the patch where Evelynn first caught her first nerf, which was her ultimate cooldown. Now in the next patch 2.2c, which we'll be covering later, she did actually get her hate spikes damage reduced by 5, and later on, like in patch 2.3a, she did get her true damage execute on epic monsters removed as well. So this was where the nerfs all started. That is something to take note, but this ult cooldown nerf was not enough to really bring Evelynn out of the meta, so she's still up there in the jungle meta. But in the mid lane, where it was enough to get someone out of the meta was Galio's bug fix to his Q. It wasn't really even a nerf, it was a bug fix because his Q was doing double the damage when it first collided. As I mentioned previously, that should never have happened, and he got nerfed in a lot of other ways because of it. And now when they realized that this was the case, they actually bug fixed his Q and actually reverted some of his nerfs, like to his passive and all that, because they wrongfully nerfed those things to compensate for his insane Q damage. So now that that's working properly, Galio was no longer broken, and since he's no longer broken, he is still a good like A tier pick, especially into Diana and Katarina, but he's no longer like S plus tier. So who is there is Diana and Katarina. Diana actually overtakes Katarina just because of ease of execution. Like, most players can play Diana, but not everybody can play Katarina. So, and Diana also has a very good team fight ultimate, whereas Katarina is more suited for like flanking, assassinating, or cleaning up team fights. So, in the Dragon Lane, no actual changes to the characters, but it is good thing to point out that Kai'Sa and Ezreal have both overtaken Xayah. So Xayah is now like the third best AD carry and is barely hanging on to staying in this actual graphic. So in support, there are no changes over here, but you know, we're quickly gonna move on to 2.2c.
Middle turret is under attack. Turret lost. Enemy slain. Double kill. You're legendary. Triple kill. Quadra kill. You're legendary.
Alright, so patch 2.2c was released in May of 2021, and honestly it was a pretty small patch. There wasn't too much that happened. We got the Renekton release. He was very underwhelming on his release. People expected him to be really good. General trend of Wild Rift is majority of times when people expect champions to be good on release, they normally aren't very good. Like Tristana or Pantheon, like unreleased people thought that they would be very good, but in reality that was not the case. So we also had the Pride event release in this patch. And as you guys can see in the meta, there have actually been some changes. So in the Baron lane, the trio of Fiora, Camille, and Akali are no longer there. Instead, we actually have Garen and Gragas. So this was the patch where people... honestly, it was towards the mid to end of the patch. Not even at the start of the patch. It was towards the mid to end of the patch where people started realizing how broken tank Garen and Gragas was. You would basically take Grasp of the Undying. You would basically just stack it the entire laning phase, and of course buy Sunfire Aegis as your first item, either that or Bramble Vest, and basically just build full tank after that. Garen doesn't build Black Cleaver or any damage, same for Gragas, he doesn't build any AP or whatever, he just goes you know, full tank. So this was the patch where full tank Garen and Gragas ruled the top lane. It was insane. So in the jungle, still same, Lee Sin and Evelynn, despite getting nerfed, Evelynn still there. In the mid lane, of course, it's still Diana and Katarina. Diana also did get a minor nerf. I believe it was to her attack speed on her passive, but honestly that wasn't too important because her main source of damage was her ultimate and as well as her other abilities, so that wasn't too important. Braum actually also got a minor nerf to his passive, so they reduced his stun duration by a quarter of a second, which actually is a significant amount of time because it's CC. So that is you know, something to take note of. So in the ADC and support, it is honestly completely the same, so there are no changes there. So this is you know, a really small patch with not much changes at all. So that brings us to the end of the 4th episode of our meta recap. Of course, if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in episode 5 of the meta recap, which will definitely be, you know, at least a couple of months later. Because even if we get to like patch 2.4, I'm not gonna cover the entire patch 2.3 immediately, because we sort of need to take some time to settle what was the meta and all that. So it's gonna be in a couple of months time. So anyways guys, thanks for watching the video and goodbye.